Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1185, 1185, Thursday, July the 9th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, let's cover the news of the last 24 hours. We've got some things to get to here. First of all, let's start with this story that came out yesterday, another story coming out of the Daily Mail. Now keep in mind the Daily Mail is considered a fairly mainstream news source in the UK, which is saying something. Remember, that's the place where you have the BBC and other sites like it. So, anyway, another story citing unnamed sources who are friends of Jizzface Maxwell. That's right, Jizzface Maxwell. A couple more friends who they're interviewing. Their names are not revealing, but sources who claim to be friends of Maxwell who are saying that she has it all. She has it all. Oh, I'm sure she does. And these sources saying that she will use it to try and get off the hook. But if she goes down, she will take everyone down with her. Well, that's how the criminal elites play the game. Of course, we'd heard the Rotten Reverend Clinton in the past make several references like that about, well, you know, a lot of people, you know, could have problems if I get prosecuted, you know, these types of things. So this is how the criminal elite play. This is how they stay out of jail. They bring a lot of other powerful people into their crimes with them. So if they go down, they can take down these people, and so they're able to leverage their situation against these other powerful people who have very powerful friends, most of them associated with powerful members of the government, super wealthy billionaires, and this whole so-called elite crowd. This is how they work. This is how they operate. Now, the more I think about this, and again, I've talked about this before, you know, we're hearing these rumors now that she's willing to cooperate. But we were hearing the exact same thing about Epstein before he got whacked, that he was cooperating, willing to cooperate, and the next thing you know, he gets whacked. So now we have these stories that Jizzface Maxwell is prepared to cooperate, and here we have these sources who claim to be friends of hers, who say, yeah, she knows everything. I assume she has some thumb drives, or she knows where the videos are, or what have you. She knows where the bodies are buried. Has all this dirt on all these people. That's her get out of jail free card, obviously. And apparently that's what her and Epstein and all the people who they associated with were all relying on. Hey, we're too big to fail. We know presidents, we know those powerful people in the world, people like Bill Gates and all these types of people. We're too big to fail. You know, British royalty, you can't touch us because we can take down these other people. So I guess that's how they looked at things. But again, as I talked about this before, we know that these people, Epstein, Maxwell's father, had connections to intelligence agencies. Now, it's one thing to sit there and cooperate and tell the prosecutors that you're going to cooperate and maybe name some names of some powerful people. But it's a whole different kettle of fish when if you're Epstein and you say, yeah, okay, so I'll cooperate with you. Well, let me begin by telling you, first of all, everything that I've been doing for the past 25, 30 years, I've been working with various intelligence agencies. I've been working with Israeli intelligence, American intelligence, British intelligence, blah, 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 blah. Well, it's at that point where the prosecutors go, time out, don't say anything else, and they walk out of the room, and they go see their superior, and they call in the big bosses, and they sit around the table in the smoke-filled room and go, okay, this guy is getting ready to drop, and guess what he's dropping? He's connected to intelligence agencies. Yep. At that point, it's not a public relations disaster anymore for powerful people. It is now a national security issue. Now what do you do? Well, You tie up the loose ends. And Jeffrey Epstein became a loose end, if in fact what he was going to talk about was his association and collaboration with intelligence agencies. That's probably what would get you whacked. Dumping on the ruling elite probably wouldn't help your cause, but you know, you might survive that. That's just a public relations nightmare. They can deal with that. What they can't deal with is a national security issue, where you have a guy who comes out and says, "Yo, I've been doing all this horrible stuff on behalf or working in coordination with intelligence agencies." You see, that's a problem. That's the type of problem that will get you whacked. So now we have just learned recently that Jizzface has been moved into a regular sort of detention facility. You know, your basic jail detention facility, where they have quite a large number of coronavirus cases. That's right. She has a really good chance of contacting coronavirus. How about that? Would it surprise you if we learn in a week or so that Jizzy has contacted coronavirus? And would it surprise you if a couple of days later we find out that she's been taken to the hospital because of shortness of breath? And then we find out that she had some sort of underlying health issue that, along with coronavirus, unfortunately, led to her death. Would any of that surprise you? Do you think that Jizzy Maxwell and Epstein were in association with intelligence agencies? Do you believe, if in fact they were, and they disclosed that fact, that the government would allow this information to become public? If in fact Jizzy tries to run this play, do you think she will contact coronavirus? Just asking. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, I find it difficult to believe that they'll even allow the globalist ruling elite, so-called ruling elite, to be exposed. You think that our government is going to be okay with allowing Prince Andrew to be outed as a major pedophile? Because he's probably not the only one in British royalty. How about the Saudis? You see, this is very complicated. And this is what these ruling elites know. And this is why they feel perfectly comfortable engaging in these activities and not really fearing any repercussions from it. They understand how these things work. It's much bigger than a Prince Andrew or a Slick Willie or any of these people. These people would actually be expendable. I mean, they'd throw them under the bus, including Slick Willie and Epstein and Weinstein and this Stein and that Stein. They could throw them all under the bus. Princes, kings, Saudi, princes and all these. Go ahead. But it's the fact that they're all connected to American intelligence and British intelligence and other intelligence, Israeli, and probably others. That's the problem. Exposing the truth about what these people are doing will likely lead back home. Right in your own backyard. Right in your own back door. Those things you hide in the basement. So that's why I have never really believed, even when they had Epstein, and we all knew he was going to get whacked, it was for this very reason. And it's not that they want to protect the so-called ruling elite. It's that they want to protect themselves. This stuff all comes back. It's like a boomerang. It doesn't just stop at Prince Andrew or Slick Willie or a Saudi prince. It boomerangs back here. So that is why I've always believed, since they first had Epstein, that something had to happen that would protect these people. And I feel the same way now. Again, if in fact it turns out that Jizzface decides to out herself and Epstein and others and explain that they were working with and collaboration with intelligence agencies, that's her pretty much her get out of jail free card. Problem is, you can't let her out now, because if you let her out, it's a public relations disaster. I mean, it's a real problem. What are you going to do when you got Epstein and Maxwell sitting there? Everyone in the world knows they're in jail. The reason they're in jail, all the evidence against them, first-hand witnesses, photographs, and all this other stuff, court documents, court filings, all these things. I mean, so much evidence, it's a public relations disaster if you let them off the hook. But if you let them talk about what they actually been involved in and who they actually been involved with, and we're not just talking princes and kings and presidents and things like that, we're talking about other things that involve national security, then you have a real problem. The public relations disaster you can handle. The national security issues you can't. That's how it looks to me. That's why I believe that Epstein would get whacked, and that's why I'll be very surprised if any of these ruling elites go down. Unless somehow they're able to work out a plea deal with her where they get her to only drop the dime on certain of these high-level so-called ruling elites, but that she not talk about the intelligence part of it. Maybe that's the deal that she can work out. But then all these so-called ruling elites, when she outs them and they find themselves sitting in that situation with their lawyers, they probably know all about the connections with intelligence as well. And they can use that same ploy. You see, it gets very messy. There'll be a lot of loose ends that need to be tied up. And intelligence agencies do not like loose ends. You see all the problems we have here? We'll continue to watch, but I would not be the least bit surprised if Maxwell finds herself coming down with a case of the Kung flu. Well, it looks like Alexander Vindman is retiring because Trump was bullying him. President Trump was bullying him, so now he's going to quit. Yep, you're not going to get that full bird, nor do you deserve it. You need to be actually thrown into the jail. Now, maybe a good move for Vindman, because I don't know how much involvement he had in the plot to take down Trump and the Ukraine thing. But I think he probably was involved in collaboration with others to take down Trump in the Ukraine hoax. And if that's found out to be true, he would be tried under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is a lot more harsh than our standard civilian court system. A lot more harsh. So maybe he's getting out so that he can be tried under the civil court system instead of the military court system. That'd probably be a good move for Mr. Vindman, because something tells me that if anyone looks into this seriously and unravels it, they're going to find that Vindman was working with the Lawfare Group and all the usual suspects in the Ukraine hoax to try to take down Trump. It all fits too well. But needless to say, Vindman is retiring, and that's good news. He's a traitor. Well, John Solomon is relating from some of his sources on the documents that were dropped yesterday by this U.S. Attorney, Jeff Jensen, who provided these documents to Judge Sullivan, which further exonerate Michael Flynn. Now, John Solomon is saying that the documents given to Judge Sullivan, according to his sources, will show that the FBI sent senior DOJ officials a memo declaring that the Bureau did not believe Flynn was acting as an agent of Russia. The FBI sent senior DOJ officials a memo declaring that the Bureau did not believe Flynn was acting as an agent of Russia. Now, how long have they been holding on to this exculpatory evidence? Mr. Rodenstein. Also, that Mueller's team was aware of the memo. Uh-oh, bad news for Uncle Bob the Executioner and the Hillary donor posse. Also, that justice officials expressed skepticism that the Logan Act could be applied to Flynn's conversation with the Russian ambassador. Also, that Peter's been stroking us, and the FBI did not believe Flynn lied to them during the interview, and that Flynn hadn't acted improperly. Also, that Silly Sally Yates and Mary McCord expressed concerns about the way the FBI was pursuing Flynn. Well, what do we make of this? Well, if I was a doctor, I would diagnose this as schizophrenia, because there's a lot of things going on here. On one hand, we have the top tier of the FBI going after Flynn, and we know that because Peter's been stroking us told us so. The 7th floor is running this. Don't shut down the investigation. But at the same time, we have Silly Sally and Mary McCord at the DOJ expressing concerns about the way the FBI was pursuing Flynn. At the same time, we have the FBI providing all this exculpatory evidence, raising questions to the DOJ. So the FBI, certain people at the FBI, are telling the DOJ, hey, Flynn's clean, back off. But certain other people at the FBI are pushing to continue on. Certain people at the DOJ are pressing forward to go after Flynn, while other certain people at the DOJ are questioning whether or not they have the goods to go after General Flynn. Sounds like schizophrenia to me. This has to be cleared up. You cannot have this many contradictory things going on. The FBI telling the DOJ that Flynn's clean. The FBI going ahead and going after Flynn anyway. People at the DOJ, top tier people, saying, nah, I don't think that we are going about this the right way. While at the same time, people at the DOJ going after Flynn. They're going after him. Both the FBI and the DOJ, at the same time, both are wanting to go after Flynn. They're also throwing up red flags. It doesn't make any sense. Were they this discombobulated? And this is all top tier people. It's like schizophrenia. Were they this disconnected from each other and out of coordination or agreement with one another? I mean, was there that type of thing going on? Was there that type of a struggle or push-pull going on at the highest levels? Is that why it finally made its way into Obama's office in that January 5th meeting, where he finally had to, because he's probably getting the same type of thing. He's probably hearing the same thing. And well, wait a minute, I don't have control of this thing. We're trying to run this frame up, but I got FBI people saying this. It's not helping us. I got DOJ people saying this. It's not helping us. So he pulls in the people who are in agreement with him, which would be Strzok, Clapper, Comey, Brennan, Yates, and all the rest, and he essentially gives them the order. And make sure you put the right guys on it. clearly Obama was aware of the fact that there was schizophrenia going on, that there were certain people within the investigation into Flynn and the Trump campaign that were saying, man, red flag, red flag, red flag, stop, stop, don't do this. While there's other people pushing to do it, to go forward with these investigations, to go after Flynn, to go after Trump. And maybe that's why Obama had to have that January 5th meeting. And maybe that's why Susan Rice had to write the cover your ass letter. Because he finally had to get involved and make it clear. Go after Flynn. Go after Trump. Don't give a damn about these other people saying, throwing up the red flags. Screw the red flags. Full steam ahead. Make sure you put the right guys on it. You know who the right guys are. They're the guys that are not throwing up the red flag. We already learned that Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan, had more evidence that the Russians were pulling for Hillary than were pulling for Trump. But yet he told those people, no, we're not going to use any of that information, that the Russians actually want Hillary to win. Forget all that. We're going to go with the stuff that says they want Trump to win, of which it was very little. Same type of thing happening. So clearly, what this is telling us is that there were people within the FBI, the DOJ, the intelligence community, throwing up red flags. But the people at the top, the Comeys, the Brennans, the Clappers, Obama, Rice, Yates, all these people at the top, gung-ho, full bore, go get them. So I would have to assume that Durham is going to get to the people who threw up the red flags, like Stu Evans, for example, and probably get them to be witnesses to testify for the government's case. But clearly this is telling us that there was a lot of confusion, a lot of issues, that they really didn't have full control of this thing. They didn't have a full handle on it. That there was obviously people who were throwing up red flags and creating problems. And we know that because we have Strzok's emails where he's talking to Lisa Page about what a problem Stu Evans is and why he has to call, why she's got to get with Andy and tell Andy to call Evans and put the pressure on him. So there were a lot of people being clamped down on it, apparently. Now these people should have been the real whistleblowers. But they did not come forward. Why not? What were they threatened with? Not a single one of them could have went to file a whistleblower complaint. Hey, I think they're trying to run a frame-up operation on the president and his incoming national security advisor. Nope. Apparently not. My. Well, here's some good news. The British court has ruled against Chrissy Steele in his case where he's being sued by Alpha Bank. Well, the two owners of Alpha Bank, which is Peter Avon and Mikhail Friedman. They, of course, sued Christopher Steele for making accusations in the dossier that were false and have now been proven false, or certainly have never been proven true. So the British court has ruled against Chrissy Steele, and now he must pay damages. And to be honest with you, this number I think is very low. I'm very surprised. It looks like the amount of damages would be U.S. around $22,000. $22,000. Man, I bet these guys' legal fees were more than that. That's not very much. $22,000. I mean, I guess. But it appears that the oligarchs who own Alpha Bank really weren't in it for the money. I mean, they're billionaires. They're not really in it for the money. They just wanted their name cleared. They wanted it to go on the record that the accusations, 6 in total, made against them in the dossier were false or never proven true. And they contest that they absolutely are false. And that's essentially how the judge ruled in the case. He said, hey, the reason Steele lost this case is because the judge said, hey, you know, you're getting this information working for a political campaign. And the judge points out in his statement that, and I'm not sure what information he had, the judge, when he makes this statement, but he says in his statement that Steele knew very early on that he was working for the Hillary Clinton campaign. Not only that, the judge says that the FBI knew that Steele was working for the Clinton campaign. But the reason Steele's in trouble is because the judge has ruled that Steele was obligated to make some effort to verify the information that he was providing to not just the Clinton campaign, no, but to British and American law enforcement and intelligence agencies. There's where the problem is. It's not so much the fact that he was giving garbage lies to the Hillary Clinton campaign in a political operation. That's one thing. But what irks this judge, it appears, is that that Steele was obligated to try and verify this information because he was giving it to American and British law enforcement and intelligence people, which in the case of the FBI resulted in 4 FISA warrants, 1 FISA warrant and 3 renewals on Carter Page. So the 6 allegations made by Christopher Steele, proven in the court case not to be true or no evidence to prove that they were true, and that would include Steele making the allegations that Avin and Friedman did favors for Putin, not true. Provided intelligence information to Putin, not true. Met with Putin in September 2016, not true. Bribed Putin when he was mayor of St. Petersburg, not true. And did Putin's political bidding, not true. And that's why Christie is going to be writing a check for $22,000. And I wouldn't be surprised if it stops there. Now, this information that came out is going to be important to Durham's investigation, because obviously this judge would never have put it into his statement if he didn't have evidence of it. When he says that the FBI knew from the very beginning that Steele was working for the Clinton campaign and the information was unverified. The FBI wants to try to pretend that none of that occurred until much later, late in 2016, after December, after the election, possibly even as early as January or February. But the judge is suggesting in his statement that the FBI knew all along. We're talking back in 2016, when this is all going down, the summer of 2016, that the FBI knew that Steele was working for Hillary and that his information was unverified and that he never attempted to verify it. Well, Joe Biden had a bad day yesterday. He suggested that police are the enemy and they should be defunded, and that's not going to go very well. That is not going to play well in the general election. Trump is just going to beat him to death on that. Now, Trump will have to actually bring that up himself because the news media will never do it in the debates. What Trump will have to do in the debates is, regardless of what question that the left-wing media ask, just ignore the question they ask and just start attacking Biden and asking Biden all the questions yourself. Trump is going to have to be the questioner of Biden because the media isn't going to be. And Trump will need to ask Biden about his statements about suggesting police are the enemy and that they need to be defunded. He's going to have to explain that, amongst as well as other things. Not only that, but he was also doing an interview yesterday where he was trying to lay out some sort of a policy objective, and he's literally right in the middle of telling you about this policy objective and what it's about when he forgets what it is while he's telling you about it. He just goes blank. He's trying to tell you about some policy agenda he's going to pursue, and as he's telling you about the policy agenda he wants to pursue, he forgets what it is while he's telling you about it, after just saying he would defund the cops and that they're the enemy. I don't think these are winning positions. What do you think? Well, a little follow-up from John Solomon from his interview yesterday. Pretty much the same thing, but I'll get a little more specific. I wrote down a couple of the quotes, things he actually said, as opposed to just a general statement about it. So, John Solomon in that interview, I think this is the one with Lou Dobbs, says that he is hearing from defense lawyers and people on the prosecution side that the coronavirus has slowed down the grand jury process. Now, we know from previous reporting that Durham already had grand juries convened. He had already been doing grand juries. But I guess coronavirus threw a wrench in those spokes. And this is what Solomon is saying, is that his prosecution side and defense attorney side are saying that COVID has slowed down the grand jury process. But, he says, everything he is seeing on the ground and real reporting suggests there will be criminal indictments and plea deals. He expects this to occur around Labor Day. It's when he expects to see the results of Durham's investigation. Solomon also says that there is a lot of activity consistent with building criminal prosecutions and preparing for criminal plea bargains. Yeah. The timing is very interesting. Very interesting. I thought that they would want to do it before the convention, but if they're talking around Labor Day, maybe after Labor Day, that's when it would have the most political impact, which is why I thought that they would avoid that. But apparently Barr doesn't care, and that's fine with me. I mean, I don't care. If I was a political advisor, though, I would say do it before Labor Day. But as we learned yesterday, you have to be very careful about evidence that you collect from grand jury proceedings. Those proceedings are not designed to collect information as much as it is to convince a grand jury that you have enough evidence to bring criminal charges. It's not supposed to be used for a fact-finding mission, and it can cause problems if it turns into that. And that may be what they're trying to avoid. That's what we learned yesterday. So the Democratic Convention is around the second week of August, which means the convention will be over around the third week of August, late in the month of August. Labor Day would be a week to 2 weeks after that. I mean, it's politically timed. I mean, for Trump, politically speaking, it's the perfect timing. I mean, you talk about the October surprise. It's an October surprise for Trump on compliments of the DOJ and the Durham investigation, because that will drastically change the way a lot of people are thinking about voting and how they're going to vote. If it becomes, the indictments come and Barr comes out with Durham and his team of attorneys, and they all make a fairly good argument that, hey, there was a attempted coup that occurred, and all this stuff was garbage. It was all a pre-planned effort and included the Mueller investigation and everything else. This entire thing was a hoax and a coup plot. Yeah, that's going to have a major impact on the way a lot of voters vote. And it will be compliments of the DOJ and John Durham. It's the best October surprise you could hope for. So we will have to continue to watch and see. But yeah, I mean, I have believed for a long time they have to prosecute some people in this deal. I mean, there's too much evidence in the public, arena, from the IG reports, 5 of them from Huckleberry Horowitz, all the documents that have been leaked, the dismissal in the case of Flynn, all these other things. There's too much evidence in the public domain that shows us that serious crimes were committed, and they have no choice but to prosecute these crimes, really. I just don't think they can sweep them under the rug. Unless John Durham gets coronavirus, along with Jizzface. Oh well, we'll keep following the story. These are certainly interesting times to be alive. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.